Hi, my name is Akankshya Upadhyay and I'm your English instructor. In today's class, we will be learning about criticizing and expressing degrees of probability, which is in the 5th unit of our English book. So let's begin. Let's begin with what criticize actually means. The Oxford Dictionary defines criticize as the expression of disapproval of someone or something on the basis of faults or mistakes. So let's write it down. In other words, criticizing means saying something bad about someone or something. Let's go through some modal verbs to express criticism. The verbs that we can use is can, could, might, and should. For present and future tense, we use these modal verbs and the infinitives. So modal verbs for present and future. So let's go through some of the examples. You can be really boring. Another example is you shouldn't be sitting here doing nothing. Now let's see an example using might. You might be more polite. And another example for should. You should be sorry. These are the expressions we use for present and future tenses. Now we will look at the past tense. For past tense, we use the modal verbs could, might, should, and shouldn't. Now here are some examples. You should have booked the movie tickets. You shouldn't have eaten too much. Or you might have helped me. In these ways we can criticize. Now we will go through expressing probability. Again, the verbs that we use for expressing probability: must, might, could, may, or can't. These verbs have different degrees of probability. First, using could, we say an example: she could be fat if she continues eating cheese. Here, could is used to express the probability maybe. Maybe it's just a simple probability. Another example using must: he must be sleeping. Here, the must says that it expresses the probability that you're fairly sure that something is true. So fairly sure something is true. Now we use can't to the example for can't. She can't be happy without her best friend. Here, the verb can't is used to express the probability if you're fairly sure about something which isn't true. Next, we will see the probability structures using will and won't. We use the sentence with will or won't when we are very sure about something. So when you know that it's probably surely happening, we use will. For example, she will be at school, or she will be at school now. Now we see sentence structure using should and shouldn't. Sentences are used with should and shouldn't to make assumption about what is probably true if everything is as expected. So if everything goes well, everything is as expected, the situation must be probably true. For example, Hari should be home by now. Hari left 1 hour ago, and by the time he must be at home, so he should be at home by now. Another example is Shyam should pass the exam this year. Because you have seen Sham working very hard for exam, you are pretty sure that he should pass the exam this year. Now what if Sham failed? To state the probability of any negative sentence, we do not use should. So should is avoided for sentence with negative meanings. Should is replaced by will in that case. So let's see an example. Anish will be very angry now. Or the road will be very busy at 5. So these sentences are giving us a negative meaning. Negative in the sense that being angry is not a positive thing, and very busy means you'll get a lot of traffic there. So these sentences reflect negative meanings. So we don't use should. The road should be very busy at 5 is a wrong statement. Rather, we use the road will be very busy at 5. Now, we'll see the sentence structure using can. We use can when we know something happens. When we know something happens. For example, it can be cold in Mustang. Mustang is a very cold place and it can be cold in Mustang. You know that it's cold in Mustang. Another example, he can be here at 5. So this is generally possible because maybe he works here, so he works here, he comes at 5 and works. So you know that something is happening, something happens. You know that he's going to be here at 5. So we use can in those conditions. Can, as I said earlier, is used for, which is true for general cases. Can is used for general cases, which is possible. So can't be used while talking about specific probability. Instead, we use could for the replacement of can. So let's see an example. She could be singing now. If she's a singer, you can assume that she could be singing anytime, so you may write she could be singing now. This she can be singing now will not be correct in this case because you're not sure if she is singing at the moment. You're just assuming it. So can denotes higher probability, whereas could denotes a little less than can. These are the modal verbs we use for talking about present and future. Now we will look at some of the modal verbs to talk about past. For talking about past, we use must or might or could or may or can't. Plus have plus the past participle form. The degrees of probability that these verbs express is same as we discussed earlier. Now we'll go through some of the examples. Ravi must have forgotten me. You met Ravi when he was too young, and now that it has been 20 years that you met Ravi, you're fairly sure that Ravi has forgotten you. So because you're fairly sure, you write must. And because we're talking about the past tense, so here we write the verb that is must and have, and then the past participle form of forget, that's forgotten. Have forgotten me. Next example is she couldn't have gone home alone. Because this is a specific probability, we use couldn't, could, and the negative form is couldn't, and use the past participle form with have. So couldn't have gone home alone. Now let's see the use of will and want. For example, the shoes will have arrived in the store by now. Some more example using should. The bus should have left. Or while using could, we saw the use of couldn't before. Now let's see how we express probability with could in past tense. She could have been dancing. Now here is a homework for you. Criticize your friend for buying a new expensive mobile phone. And for the probability section, write sentences in the following headings. Something will certainly happen. Something may or might happen. Something might not happen, or something certainly won't happen. This is all for today's class. If you have any questions or suggestions and comments, please feel free to write to us at learning@deerwalk.edu.np. Thanks for watching.